Sometimes people ask me, Rick, why do you make YouTube videos? What are you trying to prove? Why are you here? And I'll think about it and say, well, why would I make a YouTube video? The main reason why I make YouTube videos is just to share some of my experiences. Now, why would I want to do that? I want to talk about that now. There are a lot of goals that people have when you're younger, you're middle-aged, and you're older. Younger people, you start out with basically nothing. Your parents may give you something, but in our society, when you're a child, up to maybe 18 years old, you're pretty much stuck in a system where you sit at a desk during the day for most of your life, and then you may get a couple of months off at this time of the year, but then maybe after that you'll go and sit at a desk for 2 to 4 more years, and then eventually you're going to start out on your own. Now, if you're one of those people that is born in a rich family, it may be a little bit differently. You're still going to be sitting at the desk, but that desk may be in a more expensive place, or you may have private tutors or whatever else it happens to be, but it won't be at a prison with a 6-foot chain link fence like we have now, and some of them even have barbed wire. But what about me? I'm long beyond that stage. It's been decades since I've been in the classroom watching a teacher, and it's been more than a decade since I was in a classroom being a teacher. Yes, I taught at Miami-Dade College from the year 2000 until the year 2013. I taught electronics technology and computer repair. We did networking, also did technical math. Oh, that's a pretty good sized iguana. Look at that thing. Well, nice to see that they're coming back. Anyway, a lot of gnats. We had rain this morning. There's a young iguana. But people would say, well, okay, that was a long time ago, Rick. You haven't been in a classroom since 2013. But I think in some ways, the internet is today's classroom for real learning. Yes, if you want to get accreditation, you're going to have to be going to one of the formal schools, spending the time and money. There goes another iguana. Oh boy, look at that iguana. You have to spend time. Come here, Mr. Iguana. I'm gonna get you. I almost got you. Oh well. They know better. Anyway. So you say, well, yeah, you spend all this time, but you're no longer in the classroom. That's fine. And again, everybody's experience may be a little bit different. But in my case, I just like to share the information. Now, to get accreditation, you have to follow the rules. You have to pay the money. You have to go through the process. The hazing, or whatever they call it. It all comes down to making people suffer for a while so that then they can get some kind of special recognition. It doesn't have to be that way. You can learn things by doing. Most of my skills I learned by doing, not by being taught. Now, it's nice when you can have somebody out there to teach you. For example, the way I learned how to weld, I got a hold of a welder and I started welding. It wasn't great to start with, but I got better over time. It's like anything else. Just because you got a saw, hammer, nails, whatever, It doesn't make you a carpenter. The easiest way to develop the skills is to have somebody else teach you. But what if there's nobody there to teach you? And what if the person that you want to teach you isn't willing to do so because you have nothing to provide them for their time? Obviously, everybody, they need to receive some type of compensation for the time that they put into any work that they do. It's just the natural order of things. So if you're going to go to school, you're going to have some kind of training, you have to offer something in return. Now, one thing that people used to do was apprenticeship. Somebody had a business and they needed a worker, they needed help. So they go out there and they look for young people or even older people that had the right skills and the right attitude, and they'd pay them, or in some cases they wouldn't even pay them. They might give them some food or some resources or whatever they're making. They might say, well, if you work for me for a while making wagons, we'll build you a wagon or something like that. But in the end, whenever a person puts in time and labor, they're entitled to something in return. It's like the Bible says that the workman is entitled to his wages. And that's kind of how the school system kind of works. Now, public school is financed by money that is basically taken from people with force through property taxes, sales taxes, or in some cases through gambling, such as the lottery. Not too many people would choose to give them that money, but they take it, they spend it, and then you end up with, well, basically an education system. Now, higher education, which has been around pretty much longer than forced public education, was often financed by either tuition or some type of grant or endowment. You might have a group of people that they need skilled employees, so they would set up a school, they would send qualified people there at either no cost to them, or they would pay the cost based on what the company or organization would get out of it. So that was something that you often saw. In today's world, a lot of this is done secondhand through debt, which is basically a promise to pay back money that may or may not exist at the time. Now, this can be applied to almost anything, any kind of knowledge or any kind of resources. So let's say that you wanted to learn how to farm. Well, you could go to a school that would teach you, and you would learn everything you need to know, but it would have to cost you. Now, in some cases, you might have what's known as a scholarship. And this is where people, either people that are in the industry or just people that have extra money and want to pass it on to the next generation, they'll set aside funding where qualified younger people of good character or with a proven track record of performance would be eligible to receive this scholarship. And that's a great thing, because giving somebody a scholarship for higher education, that is a form of a meritocracy, which is a very good thing. This is one of the reasons why I think that college, university, whatever, should be free for anyone that qualifies for it. And if you're one of those people that doesn't actually qualify for it, then you should have to pay for it, one way or the other. There's many ways of doing that. I mean, you could charge them money, or, oh wow, another iguana. Look at that iguana. Okay, Mr. Iguana. Ugh. Oh well. At least there's plenty of iguanas. One thing that you can do, if you found someone who was very much deserving, there's a phony police car, deserving of some type of training or accreditation, you could make a deal with that person and say, you know what, we're going to give you this much training here at our institution, but when you have completed your training, you're going to have to work for us for a specific period of time, for a specific amount, and that would help build back value into that institution. And again, I think this is a good thing. What I am against is going into debt. I think that they have student loans, in my opinion, they should not even exist. Having somebody go into debt to go to school, it just seems wrong to me. I don't see the point of it. You're basically saying, well, I'm going to provide you this ability to become a debt slave in the possible hope that you may be able to find some work. And that's not a very good deal, in my opinion. All right. Anyway. Let's see. There we go. So, the problem also is that when you give everybody the opportunity to go to school with debt, it causes the cost of the education to rise far beyond what it would be otherwise. And that is a problem. So in a way, even though you've increased the number of people that can go to school, you have basically decreased the value, because now it costs more and you're getting the same thing. And in some ways you're getting less, because the more people that go to college and graduate and get a degree, the degree becomes worth less. Think about it. If you had an institution and you gave out 100 degrees, well, then the next time they gave out 1,000 degrees, you're going to have 10 times as many people competing for whatever work is out there. And unless the need increases drastically, you're going to end up with a lot of people that, well, they're not going to get that great of a job. And that is kind of sad. It really is. Now, in terms of actual value, it would be a lot better if these educational institutions concentrated on the people that had the natural talent and the ability to maintain the high education standards. In other words, we got a lizard following me here. If for some reason they said, well, we're going to give you scholarship, but you have to maintain a certain grade average. Well, as long as that grade average is applied equally to all students that are enrolled, this could work out to be something really nice. Of course, if it's rigged, where certain people get the advantage over others, then it's probably not a good idea. But again, you can see how important it is to give people that opportunity. Now, what has happened a lot, you have people that come from wealthy families that go to specific institutions of higher learning. You might think about the so-called Ivy League schools. Now, they might be average students at best. Some are below average. But because the parents have plenty of money, they can hire the best tutors. And although it's not supposed to happen, it is pretty likely that some of these students, their parents, they may be giving money like an endowment to a university, and they may put a little pressure on the department to make sure that their children get through the courses. I mean, the university is getting a lot of donations from certain families. Wouldn't it be in their best interest to make sure the children of those families are able to benefit from the educational institution? And then once they get these degrees, well, it gives them that little extra bit of credentials. A lot of these people, they may get into corporate positions, and in some cases, government. So they have lots of influence. They can do a lot of things. Wait. This thing is funny. Okay. There we go. Of course, nobody ever lets the pedestrian go. Nope. It's very hard to get through here. Always sticking out. And there's no sidewalk here, so that makes it even more interesting. I mean, look at this. The stupid shopping center, no sidewalk. Anyway, so now in terms of the basics, or lizards, in terms of the basics, education is important. Being able to have access to that education is even more important. But what about the people that just don't measure up? Not everybody is going to be an academic wizard. Some people, they just can't deal with that environment. Maybe sitting at a desk and learning a bunch of obscure facts just doesn't measure up. Well, it could be plain old genetics, but it could also be a poor diet. They're eating cheap duck food like rice and beans. Their mind just doesn't work as well. So they might be better off having something like meat or something that really helps your brain. You know, they used to say fish is brain food. So having that option may be a good idea when you think about it, because there's a lot of people out there who may not be living to their potential just because they're eating wrong. But what if you try, maybe you try the carnivore diet, maybe you try paleo diet, you try all these different diets, and you're just not getting the results that you want. And you just can't get your grades high enough, you can't perform well in that system. Well, do you have another option? Well, there should be another option. Because in a world increasingly dominated by AI and automation, there is one class of work that is still needed that does not require college. And what is that? Well, look around. Someone has to be here to do the maintenance in these shopping centers and houses. You have people that install roofs. You have people that do electrical and plumbing. You have people that do sort of manual jobs, just the way it is. So it's really important that the option of labor and a trade is given. Now, in the world we live in, labor tends to be low paid, especially in larger cities, where there seems to be an unlimited supply of desperate people who need money. But if you had a world where debt was no longer accepted, people refused to go into debt, unless, of course, they had a business. And going into debt when you have a business, it can be a very good thing, because not only can it help your business grow, but it can also benefit the people if the debt is real money. Now, if the debt is simply printed up by the central banks through the bond market, that just causes inflation. But if this is actual money, surplus savings from even workers, for example, if you were a laborer and you didn't have inflation, you'd be able to save some money, especially if you were one of the better workers who produced good products and services and were in demand. Now, the lower end workers, they can easily be replaced. But there's a steady stream of young people out there. And again, some of those people, they may be in college and they need a temporary job. But other people, they may not go through the college route, and they decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and get into the labor market. Well, again, nobody is equal. They may have to bounce around from job to job. You may be the guy that's out here sitting on a lawnmower cutting grass until that gets replaced by automation. You may be the one doing paving jobs. You may be doing construction. Or you may be one of the people out there installing the artificial intelligence and automation systems. You may be a welder. You may be a pipe fitter or some other skilled trade. I don't think that in my lifetime or even yours that artificial intelligence and robotics is going to replace all of these trade jobs. I just can't see it happening. I don't even know how you would do it. But that's a good thing. Now, if all personal consumable debt was gone, so in other words, instead of a person saying, well, I'm going to borrow money to buy a car, say, you know what, I need a new car, but I'm going to save my money. And they save their money and go out there, car's too expensive, so you know what, I'm not going to buy it, can't afford it. Well, eventually, the automaker is going to have to reduce costs, even if that involves getting their people in there, getting in the government and changing the rules so that they can make cars less expensive. So there's a lot of things that can happen to change the current broken system. It all begins with the individual saying no to going into debt and saying no to being taken for a ride. If a person is not in debt, they don't have to accept crappy work. They don't have to rent some dumpy apartment that's overpriced. If families are raised correctly, parents will not have too many kids. They'll have the right amount. And then those children will be well equipped to take on the challenges of life. So instead of having to go and make some idle landlord rich, they'll be able to go out there and find their own home. If the city they live in is too expensive, they'll go, well, I'm going to go to a smaller town. They'll find some other part of the world that has been forgotten, and they'll start their own new economy because they're not sitting in debt. That's a pretty great setup when you think about it. All these beer bottles, what is this? Homeless people must be hanging out here. But anyway, that's all pretty basic. It seems common sense, but nobody ever really talks about it. All these crazy ideas, what we have to do to make the system work. The system we have is broken. It can't be fixed. All they're doing is finding ways to extend it. The ultimate solution is to just let it die. You have to let it die. It's like a termite-infested, rotten shed full of rats and roaches. There's no way to fix it. You gotta knock it over. Get rid of it. Start over. Let it collapse. That's it. But they won't do that because there are so many parasites attached to the existing system. They can't let it go. Looks like they did some work over here. And that is something that bothers me to this day. Anyway. So, those are some of the thoughts that I have. And again, I'm not an authority on any of this. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Some of the reasons why I believe what I do. I'm very much against the current system because basically it's a system controlled by parasites that take advantage of everybody else. And for many, many generations, everybody else has supported it. But now, I think some of the people that are being taken advantage of are beginning to realize that it is a rigged system. All right, so what can you do? Should you go out there and start rich, well, I wouldn't recommend that. They're very well protected, and on top of that, they're probably so full of toxic chemicals, if you ate them, you would die. But on the other hand, the most powerful thing that you can do is to just not participate. Find a way to avoid participating in their system as much as possible. And now, this takes me back to what I first started talking about, and that's my YouTube channel. Why am I on YouTube? What am I trying to do? The reason I'm on YouTube is so that I can share the insights from what I've had in my life. I don't have any children, and I'm not going to. I am too old, and if I lived here, I wouldn't want to have any kids anyway, because as you can see, there's no room left. This area has been completely ruined and turned into a complete disaster. And it's only going to get worse. When we have the economic panic that's coming, it'll slow down. Some people may leave. If we get a hurricane, that could knock this place down for 20 years. But the problem is, sooner or later, people will forget, the suckers will return, and the development will continue. Until eventually, this is just like New York City. Unless it goes in the ocean, which it probably won't. And so this is the reason why I have decided to just let that go. So what I will do, I'm going to try to educate other people. So in other words, instead of trying to produce my own family, we got plenty of people already. In fact, I think we got way more than enough people. Let's see. All right. And at this rate, it'd be better just to educate the ones that we already have. I think that would be the key. That's right. Tesla with advertising. On the run vegan. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. On the run vegan, that sounds like something you do on the toilet. Right. Okay. That's funny. They put a sign for the food truck. Well, there you go. So you can come over here. You can eat your duck food. And then just like this over here, you could be right on your way to the toilet bowl. Well, you probably know where I'm going to. Right here. I got to return something. But I hope everybody's been doing pretty good today. I'll catch you later.